this is Noreen from Joya Cards, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. And welcome to my YouTube channel. Yay! For more of my Stampin' Up! Card videos, please make sure you click on that subscribe button and the little bell, and you'll be reminded when my videos come up. So this video is, I want to show you how to color with the Simply Succulent, because this one is, you know, whenever you have to actually color in something, there are some people that are really good at the coloring technique, and then there's the rest of us, and I'm part of that category. And I wanted to show you what I went through. Now, I'm also going to be using the dies as well. If you go back on my videos last week, I used the big die here, and we made 3 different cards using this one die, so that was fun. But we're not going to use the big one today. We're just going to focus on this one. So let me show you what I went through. This is actually done. How I came up with this was using Stampin' Blends, which I was very surprised about. I also have another video if you go back, and it's the one with all the birds from Birds and Branches, and I did a whole video on using daubers and the sponging and colored pencils, and I went through the whole gamut of stuff. And so coloring techniques are kind of tricky. And let me show you before I came up with this, I came up with many things. The first thing I came up was this and this. And what this was, first of all, I had to remind myself, this is not a flower, it's a succulent. It's like a cactus. So this was silly for me to use these colors. So I went and looked at images of actual succulents and came up with these colors here. But what I did is I took shimmer white, the shimmer white paper, and I used blending brushes like this. Stampin' Up! Now has blending brushes. In January, when you get the catalog, they'll have these. You get 3 for 18 bucks. Those are great. And if you want a catalog, you can email me or go to my joyofcards.com site or put a comment in the video, and I'll get you out a catalog. So this is what I came up, and it was just blending and even using some daubers at some point for the middle spots, but obviously that won't work because these are succulents. And then I also noticed, even with doing these, because I switched to a different color, because some succulents have a lot of blue and a lot of green, and I noticed something about this stamp. And there are stamps that are like cartoony and some are realistic. This goes in the category of realistic. And not only is it realistic, but this stamp is kind of like, there's a lot going on with this stamp, and in order for it to really pop out, you can't use this technique. I think it's just too muddled and distracting. So I thought, well, I'll white emboss the outline. And yes, it did make it better, but it was still muddled. I still didn't like it. You know, so I went through my various ones. I did, however, when I used this white embossing powder for just the one little stamp, the flower here, it worked great. I think I really like this. So you could definitely cut a bunch of these out and make a card with just using this. But when you use this, it's just too much going on. So when I finally got to my Stampin' Up! Blends, it really turned out a lot better. I even tried colored pencils at one point, and it just didn't work. So we're going to be using the Stampin' Blends. So let's go ahead and do the card. So we're going to start with a 5.5 by 4.25 Flirty Flamingo card base, because these little pink tops here are Flirty Flamingo. The next, you're going to grab a piece of the green from the Oso Ombre paper. This is really cool paper, as you could tell. So grab a piece of that, and then also from In Good Taste, you're going to grab this background. I really like this gray, and what I did do is I did emboss this piece with pine wood plank. And you would think, well, why would you do that? Because there are pieces in the In Good Taste that have this wood grain behind it. That's because there's a lot of white to the background, because when you stamp this, there's a white edge. And this does have, it's a little more shallow, and I like the color against the green. So the first thing I'm going to do is take this piece. Now this piece of In Good Taste is cut 5 by 3.75. this piece of Oso Ombre is 5 1/4 by 4, and I cut off the 5 1/2 on the light side rather than the dark side when you cut it up. And so I'm going to go ahead and take this piece. Now it's going this direction, so when you are using the embossing folder, you want to make sure that your planks are going horizontal. Also, this is a 3D embossing folder, so you might want to grab your little water spritzer and give it a little spritz, because when you use a 3D embossing folder, you want to make sure it's a little damp. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to line this up with the line here. I don't know if you've ever noticed there's a line on top. And I'm going to run this through my die cutter, and I'll be right back. This is what it gives you. And I know there's another piece of paper in this pack that looks like this, but like I said, it was a little lighter in color and I liked it a little better, so I used this one. So we got that embossed. Now I'm going to take this sheet and I'm going to cut that down to the 5 1/4 by 4, which I've already done here. Now take the piece that you cut off and hold on to it, because we're going to be using that inside the card. So hold on to that piece. So let's go ahead and take this and put it on our card base, and take this piece and snail it up and put it on your card base. Got that going. Now we want to get to coloring the succulents. So the first thing we're going to do is bring out our Stamparatus, and I already have this all lined up, and put the big flower and the 2 smaller flowers on your Stamparatus, and just kind of make sure that it's going to fit there. Also take your Simply Succulent box and put it underneath the tray there, so it's got something to lean on there. And then we're going to take our Memento. So I went with Memento because you need something very contrasted against what you're coloring in. So we're going to do the Memento. So I'm going to go ahead, and it's not so much the little succulents here, but it's the big succulent that you definitely need the Stamparatus for, because I mean, just stamping it once, you see, you're not going to get maybe what you want there. So I'm going to do this a few times and I'll be right back. Now that we've stamped our succulents from the Stamparatus, I also grabbed the pot and I stamped the pot on there too, also in Memento. And then we're going to grab light and dark Mossy Meadow, light Flirty Flamingo, light and dark Crumb Cake, and light and dark Old Olive. Now the first thing I want to do is grab my light Flirty Flamingo, and I'm going to do all the tips on the ones in the middle. I'm not going to do the ends, and I'm going to do the tips on the flowers. So I'm just going to grab the painty end, the pointy end, the fluffy end of the Stampin' Blend, and I'm just going to do all the tips here. So I'm going to do that and I'll be right back. Now that we've got all the little Flirty Flamingo tips on these elements here, then I'm going to take the light Old Olive. Always start with your light colors first. That's why I started with the Flirty Flamingo, and just go right under it. Don't mix the colors, just go right like that. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in all of these and I'll be right back. That looks really nice. So what I will do is I will put a little highlight in there. Now I don't claim to be the best at coloring or anything like that, but there are some things you can do that, you know, anybody can do. Like grab this dark Old Olive. Anytime you see a V, you could put a little shadow in there. Anytime that you see a line from the stamp, like their little shadow, then you can also like just trace over that line and kind of give it some definition. So I mean, if you're really comfortable with it, go for it. If you just like it the way it is, that's fine. So I'm going to do just a little bit of shading, highlighting here, and I'll be right back. So I went ahead and did a little bit of highlighting, and now I'm just going to go with my Flirty Flamingo and just maybe brighten it up a little bit more. So I'm going to put a little second layer of this on, and I'll be right back. Now to these on each side, I'm going to take my light Mossy Meadow and color in the entire thing. So I'm going to do both sides of these, and I'll be right back. Now that I've done both of those in the light, I'm going to go ahead and do some dark, and I'm very careful about what I'm doing in this dark. I'm going to do all the little lines that they have, color in the V's, color in where I think there would be a shadow, but I'm not going to do it too much. And when I'm doing this, I am barely touching the paper with this tip here. So just I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll be right back. So now you can really see the contrast between all the succulents here, instead of it being just like one big blobby kind of thing. So this is definitely, because the stamp is so busy, this really works. So now let's go ahead and do the pot here. And what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to take the darker color of crumb cake, and I'm going to do the top part right here, and these lines in the middle, and the bottom, and so I'm going to do that. Got all those lines in. I also did these four little lines on the side. Now I'm going to take the light crumb cake, and I'm going to color it in. Went ahead and filled this in with the light crumb cake, and I went over a little darker on this edge rather and kind of made its own little shade. Also, if you find that these dry up on you, you can take this off, pull out the nib, get the refill, and drop the refills inside, put the nib back on. Look, just a little tricky poo. So now that we've got this, now go ahead and grab the dies and grab some tape and cut these out. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these out. So we went ahead and die cut all these out, and you can see how much I've taped them because they will wiggle around. So definitely tape those down. So now we've got our cuts. Now we're going to do the foliage around the main succulents, and I'm going to use another little technique, and we're going to be using the blending brushes, Old Olive and Mossy Meadow, and go ahead and we're going to do some custom paper here, and then we're going to cut those out using this paper. Now you want to use the shimmery white whenever you're doing any kind of coloring at all, because shimmery white just looks so much better. Now make sure if you're not familiar with doing some custom papers, that when you dab it on your stamping pad, you need to tap it off and then go in and do in circles, because if you don't, watch what it does. It'll make that kind of a thing. So you don't want to do that. So tap off and go in. Now that we're done with the Old Olive, let's do Mossy Meadow. So ink it up, tap it off, and go in. And you can, now on my card, I had some lighter and some darker. So if you want to go ahead and just do maybe half the card in a darker kind of custom paper than the other side, then that might be a kind of a neat idea. It just kind of worked out, worked out for me this way. So it all depends. Now it's all kind of different. So and how many times you go over it with your blending brush will also depend on how much ink's on your pad too. So I think I'm just about done with that. Just as a side note, these are the Stampin' Up! Blending brushes, and these are kind of the other kinds. And what's great about these, because they're white, you can kind of tell which color you just used, because I know this is the darker one and this is the lighter one. You just can tell. If I was using this, I wouldn't be able to tell, even when they're different colors, because this is so dark, I'm not going to be able to tell. Now, I've used all my blending brushes, and so far they're looking pretty all right. So, and usually a blending brush doesn't transfer ink once you've cleaned it anyway, and you could probably just, on a lot of them, especially like these ones, they just tell you you don't have to wash them off. You just rub them off and the color come off. I don't know about that, but anyway, so I really like the Stampin' Up! Blending brushes, and they're not all that expensive. I think they're going to be I think they are $18. So anyway, so we've got this paper done, and what we need to do now is take the dies. So you're going to take this die here, and this die here and cut out 2 of each. So I'm going to do that and I'll be right back. So I got 4 here, and I grabbed 1 set from the darker side and 1 set from the lighter side. Now we also need the sentiment. Now with this stamp set, this is great because it comes with a double sentiment die. So it's got like a this one, and then it's got an outline, and this one has got an outline, but we're only going to use this one because we don't have a lot of room. Now when you were cutting the Oso Ombre paper here, you had to cut it down and you got this little piece. We're going to end up using this whole piece of paper, so you're not going to have any wasted pieces. So take that piece that you cut off here and use the small one like this. It just fits perfectly. So I'm going to cut that and be right back. Now that you got that cut out, go ahead and take the sentiment from the same stamp set and get your memento out. And I know this is a little tiny, so I'm going to try to do this and center it as much as possible. You probably should stamp it first and then cut it, but yeah. Anyway, there we go, and let's go on. For the assembly, take all the things you've colored here, not these quite yet, and put dimensionals on the back. And then let's go ahead and layer this up. So I put 4 on here, and I'm going to put the pot right about so. And then I've taken the main one here and decide which way you want it up. I wanted these to go down, so, and then position that on your pot like so. And I'm going to take one of the big flowers here and put it on the side, and the little one right here, and I'm going to cover up this part here because it's got a lot of white on it. Now for the sentiment, now these are all on dimensionals, so what I did is I only put a dimensional on the one side, and then I left this off because it's already high enough. And then I'm going to take some snail and snail the other side. So go ahead and take the tape off that, and then this won't be like so high, so I'm going to put it like that. And so it's nice and balanced. And then take all your other little succulent pieces, flip them over, and snail them up. Slide them under here. Now when I was putting down the big piece, I didn't push real hard because I'll do that at the end when I've got everything kind of in. But just kind of find the spots where you can put in the pieces. And you want to go dark light, so there's a little bit of contrast. You can finish it off with some gold glitter enamel dots. Now this one had a little bit more room, but that's okay. I'm going to just kind of put them all where the card kind of dictates it to go. So I'm going to put these in different places, but that's, can't make everything exact. And these just really kind of bring out a lot of the cool kind of colors. You can even take, I did it on the other one, my Old Olive Stampin' Blend, and kind of color over them too if you want to make them a little bit more green. I don't know how much they'll hold on to that color, but you can give it a shot. So just like that. And that's the front of the card. Now the inside of the card is kind of neat too. And we're going to be using the other piece of that Oso Ombre that we cut off the front and snailed that up. So literally we're not going to waste any of that paper. Now when you put this in, you want to make sure that the card can close properly. So take that and put it in and cut this piece, and this is going to be a 5.5 by a 2 1/4, and go ahead and snail that up. Now for this last little succulent, you're going to take this die and you're going to use the paper that you colored, and you're going to cut one of these out. There's your little succulent from that die. Now you don't want to snail this, because if you snailed this and put it inside your card's going to stick together, because snail is just a bunch of webbing. So take your Stampin' Up! Fine tip glue, which I absolutely love. It really doesn't clog. If it does, have a little problem, you just put the pin back in it. It comes right back to life. So no issue about that. And then take a pair of tweezers and just lift it up, and we're going to just stick it on the corner I think like that. Okay, and the last thing is just to stamp the sentiment, whatever you want to use. I just went ahead and used thanks here. And that's the card. So if you like this card, I do give away the demo card. So if you're a first-time subscriber, put in the comments your email address and I'll email you, get your address, and see if you won the card. So that's it. So that is the coloring technique for my succulent card. Thank you. Bye.